to restart the stupid dashboard. Oh, actually, I think the player did actually start to play. Yep, it did. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is SgtZdog. I've got with me Jeff and Liam, also from On Target Simulations and Matrix, respectively. We're going to be doing. My mouse driving me crazy. We're going to be doing the fifth and I believe final, correct, Liam? Tutorial series. This one is on Airpower. So, I didn't lose you guys? No.
Nope, we're still here.
Okay.
We didn't run off.
All right. So we will start with sorry, I'm laughing at Hexaboo's getting consolation ice cream after doing poorly at Master of Magic. We're going to start with the video, and then we will dive into the live session of this.
Airpower gives you the ability to rapidly project firepower unrestrained by geography. Helicopter gunships and fixed-wing attack aircraft can destroy enemy artillery batteries and headquarters units, completely bypassing enemy frontline defenses by flying around and over them. Helicopters are the most common air asset you will encounter. Surveillance helicopters, like the Kiowa, gives you scouts that can move over terrain quickly, rapidly surveying approaches the enemy may use. Armed gunships like the Mi-24, Cobra, and Apache can be armed with autocannons, rocket pods, and ATGMs. Guided missiles are what give gunships significant standoff range, allowing them to attack armored formations from a safe distance. Despite being aircraft, helicopters can fly nap-of-the-earth routes and benefit from certain types of cover when hovering. If screening or holding in a forest hex, helicopters will launch pop-up attacks against enemy units, using the trees to mask their signatures and reduce the chance of being fired on by enemy air defense units. Helicopters require a forward arming and refueling point, or FARP, to resupply weapons and refuel for additional sorties. They will automatically fly back to the FARP when out of critical ammo. FARPs are best kept in the rear, out of harm's way. Fixed-wing aircraft can be called in like artillery using the order of battle or fire support menus. Aircraft are given a discretionary area when called in. The pilots will then seek out targets within that zone. Be aware that friendly fire can occur if you call in airstrikes too close to your units. The heavy ordnance loads that modern attackers carry make them well suited for bombing formations of tanks and IFVs. It's difficult to spot targets from the air, and units being dug into complex terrain reduce the chance of heavy losses from bombing runs. Air defenses include man-portable systems or man-pads like the Stinger or SA-7, and vehicles like the Shilka or Chaparral. Most air defenses benefit from being deployed on high ground, where their search radars can work at maximum range. Air defenses don't need to kill the enemy aircraft to be useful. Pilots can be forced to abort attack runs or take damage that forces them to return to base. If you suspect the enemy has air defenses, don't try to overwhelm them with air power. It's seldom worth the cost unless done with specialist seed aircraft. Suppress enemy air defenses with artillery and vector in your fixed-wing attack aircraft to hit enemy tank formations, artillery batteries, and headquarters units. Use terrain to mask the approach of your gunships. Aircraft are fragile, but can lay down heavy ordnance right where you need it.
All right. So you know what's funny here, Liam, is I just realized, like, all of this B-roll footage you used for this video is the scenario that I was suggesting at first that we did for episode 2 with for demonstrating infantry.
Well, I wanted to give the people something different with my recommendations.
Yeah,
so,
no, and I mean, like, I'm totally fine. It's just funny that, like, almost all of this B-roll footage is that scenario. And I mean, I think it's a great scenario for demonstrating air power for the reasons I outlined at the time.
But yeah, there's a lot going on in that scenario. The Soviets get.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, for you watching, the scenario is a final push. But the Soviets get a bunch of gunships. They get Su-24s. The Americans get Apaches. So everyone's kind of breaking out the gunships and really going at it in that scenario. But I see that we've picked out something different, a brief moment in time. So, can you tell us a little bit about this scenario?
So I am, just so everybody knows, I'm currently on the 2.1.4 beta. This is available open beta on Steam if anybody else wants to grab it. This scenario is not unique to the beta. It's been in the game, I think, since release, actually. Oh no.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is part. I think Brief Moment in Time might be part of 2 and 3 because it's the Canadian. Because it's against the
Yeah.
Canadians.
Yep.
But it's been in the scenario has been in the game for a bit. So this is kind of Canadians rushing to the defense. We're rushing to attack. I don't know how the battle plan maybe messes with where the AI starts, but I know if you're playing this as a player, you're not starting on a decent at least not on these three. I think you can maybe start with troops on these first two. So it's not quite a meeting engagement, but the Canadians don't have a lot of time to get entrenched. Both sides are pretty tank heavy. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more to improve the quality of the text on these guys here. Both sides are pretty tank heavy, with I think about a 3-to-1 mix of tanks to infantry. Both sides have helicopters. Neither side has fixed wing aircraft in this, but both sides have a reasonable-ish number of man pads and a reasonable number of SAM systems. So I think NATO's got the Canadians have 2 ADATS platforms, which are going to be pretty scary for our helicopters. We've got a Tunguska, and I think we have a Strela system coming in. Yeah, we have a unit of Strelas coming in. And then, of course, being Warsaw Pact, we have a bunch of IGLA teams organic to our infantry. NATO, I don't think they have. I think their man pads are all embedded in with their artillery units and in their FARP. So we're primarily concerned with the 2 ADATS platforms that they have for their air defense. But then, also because the Canadian M109 platoons have those stingers organic to the units, there's not too much incentive for us to try and have our helicopters themselves try and score kills on the enemy artillery. If we can get our helicopters to spot the enemy artillery to call in friendly artillery, great. But we don't necessarily want the helicopters themselves to go for those kills. As far as the helicopters we start with, it's 2 flights of 2 of these recon Hinds. So they just have some rockets and 50 cal Gatling guns. I think those are Gatlings, aren't they? The Yak-B? I don't know, actually. 50 cals anyway.
Yeah. I think it's a tri-barrel Gatling.
Yeah, which is pretty common for any sort of aircraft, I believe. So yeah, we have 2 flights of those. We will get coming in. I think I have yes, those 2 I left attached to the FARP. And they have, in addition to that same loadout, they each flight of 2, each helicopter has 4 Falenga missiles, ATGMs. So not a huge amount of firepower necessarily, but these guys don't come in for 30 minutes, which should give our FARP ample time to get up to here, which is a pretty far forward position while still being safe behind this hill, this forested hill. So our helicopters will have a pretty fast rearm time and can just go out, fire their 8 Falangas, and then come back and rearm and go out and do it again.
Well, I mean, it's really not. It's a cycle time, right? You're looking at, not the rearm time is different, but
yes,
the amount of
the
time
total
that you're
cycle
expecting.
time will be significantly shortened by having taking the
and,
FARP,
and,
having it
and,
deploy
and
up here instead.
let's keep this in mind, what you're doing here, because when I get to a chance to talk about it, I want to talk to the notion of Warsaw Pact FARPs.
Go for it. Yeah. So as was talked about in the video, we kind of want our radar guided SAMs to be kind of on a position that has at least some elevation and good kind of line of sight around it. I just noticed I don't have line of sight and ranges turned on. Let's get those turned on. So I think probably putting this Tunguska kind of up here. There's a decent bit of cover and concealment. We're pretty far away from anything that could spot them. If there's enemies in this town, once it starts actually shooting, it might get visible. But at least as far as just getting itself into position, it should be able to do pretty fine just here. And then it's, of course, going to have enough range to hit at least enough that I'll be able to get onto the first objective. I'll probably have to move it up to get it into the further objectives. We'll have to think about where we put it there at that point. But at least for our first objective, I think right here will do quite well. So I'm going to have it move deliberate to there. And it should be able to get there just fine with all of these tanks in front of it, kind of leading the charge. Now my thought with these two helicopters, I'm going to hide the radio log just for a moment here. I'm going to have him come up here just to get kind of some early vision for our reconnaissance. And then he's going to kind of duck back down here to kind of avoid enemy radar. Do I want it? I'll have him pop up here again, and then again duck back. Probably do the same thing, kind of pop up, and then we'll have him actually duck back to here, kind of a little bit a ways from the enemy for that next OODA-loo. And he may not, this is enough movement, he may not actually have time to complete all of that movement on just the first loop. That might take him all the way to the second loop, but we'll see where he's at. So we'll do that with one helicopter. I'm going to have this helicopter do kind of a similar-ish thing here on the northern side. There aren't, admittedly, the northern positions. The terrain is really not as favorable. Kind of wish I had more infantry for attacking on the northern side. The sight lines are just not as good. We're kind of vulnerable in general here. I'm gonna have him actually. We're gonna duck back to here, and then maybe like, oh, I'm almost scared. We'll say there. I feel like if I have him pop up on this hill, that's just asking to get shot down by SAMs. So I don't want to do that, but maybe if I put him, see, you can't really see much here or here. So I think I'm just going to let him go there, and then he can, after he's done taking that peek, he can come back for the following turn. We'll decide what to do with him then. As far as the general attack plan, just to run through this quickly, we start with 2 tank battalions on the field. We've got another tank battalion coming in as reinforcements, as well as an infantry battalion. I think the infantry battalion is in BMPs. Yes, it is in BMPs. These are BMP 1s. They have the 73mm tank gun, and also they do have the Malutka ATGM on them as well. So reasonably punchy guys. And of course, each infantry company has the Metis team and the 250 cal teams and the 230mm grenade launcher teams. So decent bit of firepower. So the infantry is going to be spawning up here. We'll have them help take our points up here. To that end, I have one spawning tank battalion is going to take up supporting positions here. So they'll take up good positions, and then the infantry will be able to move through this cleared, hopefully cleared area and just attack the point. Might take a slightly different route, maybe coming up through the valley, kind of hiding behind the hill crest here, and then being able to use the close terrain of this, of the city hexes here to do the actual attack. We'll see where we end up. And then we have a third reinforcing tank battalion. I was thinking I want to take these 3 points. We don't actually need, we only need 52%. So like if I just get these 3 points and then trade favorably against the enemy, that's all we need to achieve victory here. We don't actually have to take these Nagold bridges. So that, actually, I say that out loud, and now that I'm thinking about this, just hitting these 3 might actually be easier, because especially if the enemy artillery is up here by Nagold, we can hit the enemy artillery at the same time. Nah, I'm going to stick with my plan as is. We'll go for these 3, and I think that will be fine. We do have, assisting in our recon, we have some ground search radars, so as you can see, they will provide us a lot of vision. We have that in addition to our plain Mark 1 eyeball reconnaissance units. So with that said, with our helicopters and air defense having their initial orders, we'll dive in here.
Wait,
Wait,
couple questions. One, your mission brief says you need to seize objectives, vodka and gin. Where are those? I mean, that's your mission. And you're setting up a crossing
let's see.
of the river near Nagold, but I don't know where those objectives are.
So gin is these 2, and vodka is Nagold.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I want to have the infantry push here is if I can take this without taking too many casualties on our infantry, then it's relatively easy for us to bring at least the tank battalion that we have starting in the north, and probably one of the others that's used to secure these 2. Move both of those 2 tank battalions to then help secure
Okay.
Nagold in combination with the infantry battalion.
Okay. Understand. Okay. So now my second question is, like way back when you started out, is you don't have intel on where the Canadians are now. Like your
No, I
intel
have
just
no
says
idea.
they haven't
Yeah.
fought yet, so they're full strength, but you don't know where they're at or what they're doing. So did you make any assumptions when you formulated this plan about where the Canadians are and what they're going to do?
So I am making the assumption that they are not any further east than Bondorf and Wolfenhausen here.
Okay.
If there is anything in Bondorf and Wolfenhausen and possibly Nellingsheim here, it's going to just be reconnaissance elements. But that seems unlikely that we've managed to. I really hope the scenario designer didn't make it so that our recon spawns this far forward and there's literally enemy elements. What is this, 5 kilometers away? That would be a real quick start to the scenario that we don't have in most of our scenarios. I don't
And
believe, since we're fighting mostly Canadians, I'm not expecting any Bradleys, so any of those reconnaissance elements are going to be Lynxes,
right.
which pretty equal trade between BRDMs and Lynxes. We have a slightly heavier gun, or larger caliber gun, but I think it's a lower velocity. Um, Armor values are pretty close to equivalent, so kind of a toss-up as far as who wins. Obviously, if we get into the same hex, our guys will win because our scouts have RPGs. The Lynxes don't carry dismounts at all. Um, I'm also not too stressed about the Lynxes because if I do find them, we've got lots of tanks. They're just going to kind of run them over. So it's really a matter of where are the Leopards, where are the M901 tows.
Okay. So just looking at the scenario briefing, right, and mission statements and whatnot, and the intel stuff in the scenario, like the way I would approach this is, and having done defenses, back in this era,
Mm-hmm.
as a Blue 4 guy, there's kind of like two categories. One is a prepared defense, which takes you at least a day to do, sometimes as many as 3, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of have an idea that there's a prepared defense in front of you if you're going to attack it. The other is a hasty defense where
Mm-hmm.
like you have to surge forward and grab favorable terrain, right?
Right.
Because one of those maxims is like he who controls the complex terrain, who gets the complex terrain first, has a big advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at, I'm not going to comment about like uh, just giving the information in the scenario brief. I think this is a case of the Canadians got to do a hasty defense.
Yeah. Yeah. They're doing
They're
a
not
hasty
they're not
defense.
they're not there yet. They haven't dug in. There's no obstacles, there's no minefields. And so they're probably moving forward. Like where are they
Yeah.
starting and how far forward are they going? Don't know. But I would expect that you've got some breathing room before you make contact.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is that I'll get some breathing room to push my 2 lead tank battalions into good supporting fire positions for the 2 attacking battalions to get in and take those 2 objectives. Um, my biggest worry is that there's going to be enemy tanks or M901s already on this hill. If we put our own tanks here, we can see it's an extremely commanding position. Um, like these 3 hexes are just absolutely devastating potential. This one kind
So
of
so
as well.
901s, what do you do? What are you going to do about them?
Unfortunately, there's not a lot. I mean, I could like our helicopters would be basically immune to them, but the 57 millimeter rocket is it can knock out an M901, but it's gonna have a hard time. So, like, I might be able to use this to knock some of them out, maybe force them to reposition, but I'm definitely not going to be able to completely clear this hilltop with them.
Okay, so you have no artillery yet?
I have no artillery, I think,
And
for 30
how far?
minutes.
30 minutes. Okay. Okay.
So like I'll have it by the time I want to actually take these 3 objectives, but I won't have it for this first OODA loop. I won't have it until actually the third OODA loop. Because it'll come in at 30 minutes, it'll get pushed back then to when
Mhm.
that third OODA loop actually starts. So that is
So
going to
if
be
you're
rough.
if that's a big problem, what if your ground units are going to get priority of fire as soon as those guys get on the map?
So what I have set is I kind of reorganized how the scenario designer allocated units. So I've got
Okay, that's fair.
um, the this is the regimental, right? Because this is yeah, guard tank regiment. So this is the regimental reconnaissance.
Hmm.
I grouped that back together. The scenario designer dispersed it out so that each like battalion had a piece. I grouped it all back together, and then one of the artillery batteries are going to be reporting to them directly because those are
Super.
my lead
Yeah,
elements. But
super.
then our helicopters and then we also have the independent reconnaissance battalion. I assume that's what IRB is independent reconnaissance battalion. Um, there, again, I brought them back together as a group, and then I put under their command the 2 scout helicopters that we start with, also under them, and then the other 2 batteries we have report to that grouping.
Okay. So
So
your really your pain point for enemy ATGMs on that hill, would you call that a worthy target even if you see nothing to smack it with some artillery?
yes, and let's see, I'm trying to. The only kicker there is we're gonna actually end up. So this is the first thing I have ending up on that hill, and it's in position 3 minutes after our artillery actually shows up. On the other hand, it's coming in this way. I'm trying to remember. Let's see. You guys, actually, we probably can just do. I probably won't do neutralizing barrages, but yeah, I might just start them on suppression barrages like 1, 2, and 3, just as soon as they hit the board.
That
Because
sounds smart. Yeah.
that's like my biggest worry. And if we do a suppression barrage, um, we'll still get most of the damage output with those first and second salvos, and then get to keep the readiness down while our guys who can outdo those 901s in close range.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
I do kind of wish we had more platforms with smoke, but our infantry battalion will have a mortar unit that can smoke around Monsinghan to help our infantry cover. If I do that though, do our tanks have? I don't think they actually have thermals to see through smoke.
Oh no.
So, no, smoke would be a bad idea. Never mind. We would blind our ability to get in. So, all right, now we'll get started. That bit of discussion out of the way. Yeah, M901s on this hill scare me. I'm not sure where the ADATs are going to end up with. One of them here seems pretty likely. There's the enemy helicopters. Those are, I think, they start with 1 or 2 flights of Kiowas. Did see an enemy recon unit. Yeah, there we go. We got probably recon. That says 3 platforms. So that's probably a tank headquarters unit. And we've got some infantry down here at Ergensen. More infantry. Hang on, I'm just gonna pause this so I can zoom in and see the. Oh no, question mark. We don't know how many is there. But it does show as a mechanized infantry unit. So it might be that I just leave this tank battalion set up here so that these guys can't maneuver once they take up positions in Ergensingen, and we just have all of our attacks focus this, and we just don't push any attack on these 2 points in actuality. We'll see. We've got some reconnaissance, both ground search radar and other stuff going to show up in this area real soon here. Ground search radar, Mark 1 eyeball, helicopters all going to start spotting stuff.
Well, your rec units arguably.
M901s are up here. I think I saw M901s up in the north here. That's the Lynx.
Your rec units arguably have the improved Mark 1 eyeball.
Do they?
Well, the brain attached to it is improved. I remember Recce video. Jeff was telling us about that, how Recce troops get special training to
Yeah, they
recognize units.
have a little bit of edge on first of all range. They get a range bonus, like how far out can they see stuff.
Oh, okay.
And they get a little bit of an edge on when you say, well, okay, well, like what am I looking at? And at what range and how much time of accumulating data does it take to go like, okay, well, that's a tank unit. Not only is it a tank unit, here's the count, and oh, here's make, model, and bumper number.
Yeah.
And compared to line troops and armor and mech infantry, your recon, those things that are designated as recon elements, whether they're ground or they're helicopter, they're a little bit better at discerning those things, and that goes to their training.
Oh, these are not mech inf. These are a bunch of the tanks. We've got one company here. And these mystery icons, I didn't realize our mystery icons were just any vehicle. Could be mech inf, could be tank. There's a second recon. This 8 strong, that is definitely mech inf. Oh, one of the, you know what I forgot to talk about was what SOP settings I set on my helicopters. So I'll have to take a look at that here. There we go. Nice. We get first blood. I like that. We're going to actually, we've got a bit of a surround here. This is only a single tank platoon that's part of the reconnaissance. But our other tanks coming up into position here behind them. Oh, I would have been much happier if we got both those lynxes, but we might still get the other one. There's another lynx there. Oh, yeah, already lost one of those T-72s. Ah, got a kill back. Okay, so this should be, yes, our 3rd Tank Battalion and the Infantry Battalion, and the rest of our ground reconnaissance.
So you're playing with the whole regiment here?
Yeah, just pretty much, because you've got all 4 battalions. There's a couple of units missing from it, and I don't know if that's supposed to reflect some losses you've already taken. I think it's just the scenario designer decided not to give you those to kind of balance it out a little bit, but because it's not much. You're missing, I think it's like one of the recon units and like one of the air defense units or something like that. But you've got other stuff attached as well, right? Like we've got we've got one of the companies out of this independent recon battalion. We've got the attached helicopters. So yeah, let's look at the SOPs I set up on these helicopters. So helicopters, extremely valuable assets. How many points? Yeah, 223 points, and this is just the recon helicopters. This isn't even the attack helicopters. 223 points, extremely expensive. So I tend to give them, accept minimal losses, generous initiative. I've given them, since these are just recon helicopters, they've got a pretty generous standoff, especially for this map where they've got lots of opportunities to get lots of line of sight. Do that real generous standoff range so that they stay out of the machine gun limited air defense capability. So they'll still be in range of like stingers and anything like that, but they're going to reposition kind of aggressively to avoid that. One of the reasons I did stick to 4 hexes is that's the range of their rockets. So at 4 hexes, they'll still be able to use those rockets on any targets that are worth using them on. So that's kind of what I went with, both for the recon helicopters and for the attack helicopters. And related to that, we'll look at our air defense. I did a little bit tighter of a standoff. For something like the Tunguska, I probably could have set a larger one. I'm not too worried about it. I guess I can change the default since I'm looking at this anyway. Our Tunguska is kind of high value, so a larger standoff there is fine. But again, kind of much the same thing where you've only got so many of them. They're not as expensive as those helicopters are, but you still want to preserve that asset. So again, I'm pretty generous on go ahead and reposition anytime you absolutely need to.
I think those things, their utility elevates them beyond their victory point cost.
Oh, Oh my God, these actually are really expensive. Holy cow. Tunguska, 532 points. Whew.
Yeah.
Keep them alive. Did we get our Strela in? Yes. I think the Strela's a little bit cheaper. Yeah, it's only 45. Because this is basically you put man pads on a vehicle as a fixed as like a mobile version of a man pad, but it's these Strela missiles are basically the same thing as the Iglas. They're not too much more capable, I
No,
don't
they're all
believe.
it's passive too. I mean, you have to have
Yeah,
visual contact and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean it's definitely one of those like you've got a limited number of these things, so use them with care. Um, I'm gonna let this tank company. Actually, wait, these guys don't show that they're moving right now. That's actually kind of weird. I would have expected them to be moving currently, but they're just chilling out here. Huh. What's this? This has got to be the command section for these tanks. This is
Is
the
that a
recon
is
HQ.
that a result of like spotting level
It's
on the
only,
target? That's moving.
yeah, this one is, but
That
these
one is.
three are not. And that's kind of a weird place for them to be. Like, what? You're kind of out in the open there, guys. I don't know what you're doing here.
Yeah, they're moving. It's just your spot doesn't show that.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what it is.
Maybe?
I mean, it's generic tank, right? And so the number
Yeah,
is suspect, and you're going to look at that and go, well,
yeah,
I really know it's this because they're full strength, and I know what their
yeah.
TONE is, right?
Now we did spot, oh, they're M150s, not M901s. But the
Oh, oh,
M150 tow
oh,
platforms are up north here. I'm helping out the infantry. I'm actually kind of okay with that. That's, I think, probably my best case scenario because I'm going to have time for my tanks to get up here. They're going to get into these woods without these guys being able to stop them. That's actually pretty much the best case scenario, I think. Well, I guess I mean the best case scenario would be that they're like all the way back here or like hiding in the valley and not actually participating. That would obviously be a better case. But if they're going to participate over here around Munsingen, I think it's as good as it's going to get for us. So, yeah, we've got at least one tank company here. A little shot up now. If I hide the unit markers, can I see? Yeah, 3 corpses identified. Um, Are these? They are 4. There are 4. We're only spotting 3 here, but there are 4 in these platoons.
Uh, Zed, do you mind showing off the who controls local air superiority right now?
Oh yes, that is okay. So I think it's pretty contested in this scenario. Oh, I thought it was here. Is it in ops? Air support. Yes. So right now it's contested. Um, based I didn't show off the mission briefing or anything, but I believe it says that it's likely to be contested all day. Um, so I don't expect too much behavior in that regard.
Well,
Okay.
if you're playing as Warsaw Pact, I think that's a win for you.
Yes. Oh no, it definitely is. For sure, for sure. I'm trying to
Uh,
think here.
well, you formulate a plan. Jeff, I got a question for you.
Jeff, your mic is muted.
You're muted, by the way. Yeah.
I'm sorry, send it.
All right. Assumptions. So what's when it came to Cold War going hot, air assets are being deployed, Warsaw Pact thrusts are going forward. What were the assumptions about who would control the skies? Like what
Okay,
assumptions did
so
the Pact make, and what assumptions
the
did like the states make?
the assumptions that we always trained with back in those days was that in general across the entire front, the NATO Air Force could achieve air superiority across the front. Now, does that mean everywhere? No, because as an attacker, like you're picking your point to attack. As a defender, you're worried about figuring out where they're going to attack, and it's a mass compared to mass thing. So we always trained with the assumption that the Warsaw Pact could pick a point on the battlefield, and for a very, very narrow piece of the front, achieve air parity, which would be in game terms that would be contested. They can't do it everywhere, right? At the same time, but they could definitely pick a point and shove a whole bunch of aircraft, and then make it contested and keep the Air Force busy, shooting down air superiority fighters from the Warsaw Pact. So this is not an unreasonable thing to see, and what that would kind of indicate when you see that kind of surge, that's a main effort on the part of the pact.
Mm-hmm.
At least in that sector, right? And think of it in terms of like, any given Warsaw Pact army level, combined arms army, tank army, in that sector of the battlefield for that Soviet or that Warsaw Pact army, that's still a pretty big front, and so there would be, Red Air Force or Soviet Air Force assets allocated to that tank army, and then in turn they can concentrate those things as they see fit. And they say, well, we're going to make our main push here, so they're going to flood the zone, for maybe it's like 20 kilometers or 50 kilometers wide. They're going to flood the zone with a bunch of aircraft. Bunch are going to get shot down, but while they're flying, right, it's keeping the NATO Air Force pretty busy.
Mm-hmm. So, as far as you understand it, did your counterparts across the way think the same thing, that they would only be able to locally contest it for a limited time?
Yeah, and part of that, evidence of the acknowledgement of that is like, okay, so close air support, that's air support for troops in contact. On the Warsaw Pact side, the platform of choice was attack helicopters, right? The bombers and the fighter bombers, they were more dedicated to striking logistics stuff. They're more of a deep battle kind of thing, interdiction of reinforcements, right? Keeping in mind that you're looking at it like a 10-day period from the initiation of hostilities. NATO's going to be, the U.S. is going to be bringing reinforcements from the continental United States. They're going to draw equipment and move forward. So interdicting those guys is an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And attack helicopters don't have the legs to do that, because now we're talking like you're like over in eastern Bavaria. You're like maybe 50 kilometers from the inner German border, but those depots are a 4 to 6 hour drive away, and you want to interdict those guys, and you can't do that with helicopters. So the way the Warsaw Pact looked at it was like, okay, we're going to use helicopters to do troop support for the ground attacks, and the interdiction then would be the fixed wing stuff. Doesn't mean you would never see fixed wing in the close fight. It's just that the majority would be helicopters.
I see.
And the other thing that's interesting about this is, unlike the West, the attack helicopters didn't belong to the Army in the Warsaw Pact. They belonged to the Air Force.
I did not know that.
And they operated out of air bases, not. And this is why I want to talk about FARPs earlier. It's like, well, we got Warsaw Pact FARPs. They really didn't have them. The problem is we don't have a mechanism in the game right now to have FARP type activities off map, which is where they would be. So you get kind of an advantage because right now we don't have those things. It's on the roadmap. At some point where the Warsaw Pact FARPs will go away, and now when they shoot all their ammo and they got to go reload, they got like, maybe a 30-minute flight time to go back to rearm, and then, 20, 30-minute flight time to get back to the battle map. So right now you get a lot shorter cycle time because, we have to have this fill in the gap thing because we don't have all the mechanisms built.
I see.
And another interesting thing is, so since the Air Force owns the helicopters, they're not part of the divisions, right? And typically what you would see is each army, combined arms army or tank army, would have a couple of attack regiments, which is like 20 attack kilos in a regiment, assigned to the tank army. And then the tank army commander would say, okay, here's where I want folks to fly. Part of that also would be like about a half a dozen or so attack helicopters under the operational control of the division in excess of that. So now you're looking at, like, if you get all the aviation, all the attack helicopters from, the higher headquarters army given to a division, now you're talking about like maybe 42, 44, 46 helicopters available to the division. Cut that in three if they equal them out, 3 or 4 if they portion them out equally to the regiments in the division. So now you're looking at, like, somewhere like typically maybe as many as 2. Depends on where the division's effort is. And saying 10 per regiment. All right, so it gives you the scale of how things go. Now, counter that to a U.S. heavy division, got a combat aviation brigade, right? Got 2 attack helicopter battalions that's owned by the division, and they got a division cavalry squadron that has another troop of attack helicopters, right? So now you're looking at like 7 company-sized attack helicopter units formations inside a heavy division. It's a different theory about things.
Yeah, I didn't actually know that the Soviets had their helicopters as a part of their Air Force. I imagine it would mean like less, it would take a while to build the relationships to sort of properly coordinate with whatever army you're attached to. But I could see a little bit of the World War II Soviets here, where they like to concentrate a lot of assets in their brigades and they attach them to divisions and armies, where they need them, rather than
that's very much a cultural thing in the Warsaw Pact Army during the Cold War, carried forward to the Russian army today, is relying on and leaning on experiences from the Great Patriotic War. That stuff echoes today. Yeah, and it's like, this stuff worked. If it worked, why do we got to change it? And that's kind of the attitude. And there's a lot of there's papers you can read, it like analysis about that, kind of like a group psychology kind of analysis. It's very interesting, right? And it leads into things like weapons development, right? And the political structure of the Soviet Union did a lot of things to streamline weapons development, because you don't have congressmen who have a factory in their district, and so they want this weapon system to keep the factory open. That didn't exist over in Soviet Union. It was just like, here's the requirements, and we're going to build these, and the rest of the chips fall where they may. And it doesn't happen in the West. It's more complex. It's more dynamic. And you get instances of building a platform and going, okay, so now what missions can it do, right? And there's historical examples of that, right? And you can even like point at things like, heck, you can point to Bradley, if you want to, about that. And then it's like, well, we want this mission, it can't do it. Now you got the A1, now you get the A2, now you got the A3, etc. You have this evolution of a platform. To once you get the platform and you refine what the mission is, and it's like, oh, you got a gap here, so now we got to go back and do a tweak. It's a very interesting contrast between approaches to warfighting.
No, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, the Soviets tend to have lighter line formations. I guess you could say the maneuver elements don't have a lot of organic special weapons, and that's always, concentrated in these, sometimes in brigades and sometimes, the high-ranking, a very high-ranking general has
Well,
to
I mean,
authorize.
it depends on the dimension you're talking about. So let's talk about air defense, right?
Mhm.
And so the West was really relying on the Air Force to wipe out, the fighter bombers and the fixed wing attack aircraft. Okay, great. Except that the Soviets said, well, our main troops in contact support platform is the helicopter. Well, that's a different ball of wax, right? Because both sides are going to have a hard time achieving surprise for fixed wing attack against ground targets, because everybody's got these surveillance radars that reach hundreds of miles, across the battlefield. They're out of range of everything. So everybody, on both sides, both on the ground and air platforms, AWACS and stuff, have a really good picture of what's flying in the air if it's not too close to the ground. Okay, so it makes it hard to do an airstrike with fixed wing aircraft and surprise. And so the Soviet response was, we're going to have like belts, from the troops in contact all the way back to like the Army level logistics of a really deep, complex, integrated, passing targets off to each other kind of air defense system. And it's about shooting down airplanes, right? And then that goes forward to the maneuver battalions. So like every mechanized company has got man pads, organic. They work for the company commander. And like there was a time where, probably in the early to mid 80s, where those man pads were like with arms reach to the company commander, because they would operate basically free, weapons free. In other words, if somebody flies into my sector, unless somebody tells me don't shoot, I'm going to shoot it down. That's how they train their gunner crews. So to make sure that, and the IFF was like, you had to visually identify make, model, and bumper number or tail number on the aircraft, right, to know that it's friendly or foe. And if the guy's not sure, if it's like, I'm not sure, you shoot it. Okay, so to reduce fratricide, then that meant that company commanders, like, and this is the motorized rifle troops, they would keep those guys like at arm's reach and tell them when they can shoot, right? Not integrated, not talking to the air defense net, right? These guys are disconnected from that, and they're just like, they see something, I want to shoot it. Hey boss, can I shoot it? Yes or no? And if the boss says yeah, then they shoot it. Contrast that to like a U.S. heavy division, like man pads, not organic to a battalion, not organic to a brigade. They're all a division asset, and the division had an air defense plan. And like some were cut to the brigade, and the brigade says, okay, I want the support to be able to do this combat effect, this battlefield effect, which is for the West, it's largely not about like I gotta protect my guys, I gotta shoot down aircraft. What I really want to do is I want to use them in the other effective air defense. Was like, well, okay, if I can't shoot them down, I degrade them to the point where they're ineffective because they're afraid to fly into the engagement envelope. If I push the engagement envelope far enough, then they're taking low payoff shots or low probability kill shots, right? And what that does is it frees up freedom of maneuver to go to the left, to go to the right, or whatever. So it's some of that philosophical difference.
So, as an illustrative example of that, we've got these Tunguskas, right? They're deployed pretty far forward right now for, ZdDog's force. And those things, man pads might scare off a helicopter or fixed wing aircraft, but those Tunguskas, if you've used them in this game, they're murderous. They kill aircraft. They shoot them down.
Okay, so this is an interesting thing, and so like, and it's not a criticism, because this is one of the things we want to be able to do with the game, is like let players play to their own style and do the what ifs. Well, what if they operated differently, right? And there's some things you can do that really won't hurt you that much, right? And there's other things you do if you want to like play it differently, like you might get spanked. Okay, the way Kevin's using the Tunguskas here is he's kind of taken a Western view of that. He's pushing them forward. Remember, these things are a regimental asset. He's pushing them forward to the battalions,
Yeah.
to give him freedom of maneuver. That's a Western view, and I'm not faulting that. I mean, like that's a cool thing to do. Is like, well, you do this what if, like, did they use them wrong, right? You kind of validate. You're kind of like validating the Western view by doing that with the Eastern guys and see if it works or not. That's fine. That's great, and I encourage people to do that. But if you really were trying to play this as like, you're a professional op for, right?
FARP should probably be
Then
back here. The
they would
Tunguska
be protecting
here, or
regiment.
maybe
They would
back
be protecting
here.
regimental assets,
Yeah,
right? So they'd be protecting like the artillery
yeah,
is probably the biggest thing they'd be doing.
yeah. I'd probably.
And you position them to do that without exposing them to, we don't have, like air defense counterfires, but I mean, like if you get a radar hit and it's an artillery range, you're going to smack it with artillery if
Oh
you're
yeah.
smart, right?
Well,
So
and
there's that.
the 109 howitzers, they're gonna hit this whole map, even if they were like a couple of kilometers
Right,
west off map. They would hit this
right,
whole
right.
map.
Yeah,
So
I mean, your artillery is going to cover the map.
yeah, so
So when you get
the
a radar hit,
Tunguskas would be in range.
if you get a radar cut as NATO, like it's foolish not to shoot it.
Yeah.
All right. If nothing else, and to make him move off to his primo, I want to shoot from here position, right? You're going to degrade him just by making him move.
Yeah.
You're going to make him do something he doesn't want to do. That's always a good thing.
And these guys are set where if they receive any fire, they're gonna move. Now, I do have the advantage of pretty much no matter where they move, as long as it's not forward, it will probably get them out of the enemy fire. But yeah, they are kind of far forward. Um, the enemy, if they were to keep advancing down A81, would catch up to these guys and they would potentially be in trouble here. I'm not too worried about it insofar as I have a tank battalion here with one company already in a hold position that's going to hit the sides of those leopards as they try and advance down the A81. I have another company coming up here to take an even more advanced position where it'll be able to take on those enemies. So I'm not
And
too
one thing,
concerned about it.
another thing that's interesting about all this is to think about as you're playing this, right? Is to think about, okay, so I'm playing against a battle plan, playing against a computer player, AI, whatever. There's that. Then there's the idea of like, I'm gonna play against a human, right? Or I'm gonna play in a tournament against a bunch of humans. So like, does that change your play style?
Yeah.
And how do you rehearse for that? Using the AI, so it's things like what's your SOP for, are you do you have your radars energized all the time, for example, on Tunguska?
And it
And
is
maybe you
right
don't.
now.
Yeah, and maybe you don't, right? Maybe he's in an ambush position, and the first thing is a visual shot, and after that, and that might be a good SOP thing to put in Jura, Kevin, is energize upon sighting enemy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, so before I hit start, I have utilized the fact that my reconnaissance has identified we've got at least 2 tank companies here and at least 1 infantry company here. What's the second? Yeah, 1 infantry company and at least half-ish of the M150s are over here.
You
But
want to make a couple of comments about
my
M901 versus M150?
Sure. After I finish this. However, with all of that stuff spotted, I haven't spotted anything defending Nagold itself. So I'm actually just going to be bypassing these forward 3 and sending my infantry on to take those, while my tanks take up blocking and kind of pinning positions on all of these enemy units that are still moving further forward than honestly I would have put them. I think this is going to be an excellent opportunity for me to shoot them as they move and try and. It looks like they're trying to get out in front of the objectives, and I think they're going to pay quite heavily for that. So I'm going to try and punish them for that. But yeah, go ahead and talk about the difference
Yeah.
between an M150 and an M901 because I
Okay.
don't know.
So way back when in the '60s they come out with the tow, and at that time it's the first tow is like it's on tripods. And so what do you do in a heavy division?
Oh, they're not even. I thought it was U.S., but they're actually West German. Is it just the helicopters? Oh, it's just the attack helicopters. Okay, it's almost all NATO or Canadian. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Okay, so um, don't have a dedicated platform, so you grab the ubiquitous M113, and then they build a mount and remove the 50 cal, and you put a mount that is on the top deck, and basically it's kind of like you're using
Oh,
the
these are
track
almost
at,
more
at
like just welding a tow launcher onto the top,
just
whereas the
just
901s are like
just
purpose built.
just about it's a retrofit. It's like we're gonna like we're gonna bolt a mount with a tow cradle in it.
Is this a guy sitting on top firing
The
this thing?
gunner is sitting on top, all
Woo.
right,
Okay.
and you can do. I mean, like he's sitting up high enough that you can do like hull defilade, but the gunner is
Yeah.
exposed like
And
to
this, I guess
artillery.
this is your loader commander standing on the or sitting
That,
half in,
yeah,
half
that's your
out on the 50
well,
cal.
your track commander is also your tow gunner,
Oh,
right?
he's the gunner. Okay, then you've
He's
got
the
a
gunner, right?
loader machine gunner is on the 50 cal, I guess.
No, when he's driving around, he's at the 50 cal.
Oh,
When
okay.
he parks and he wants to shoot, he gets out and gets behind the tow. And he's got a
Gotcha.
loader. He's got a guy in the hull that can hand missiles up to him or come up on top and help reload. And you got a driver, and that's basically what you got. And there's a capacity if you're in a defense, right?
Hmm.
And we haven't modeled this yet. We don't have this capability yet of taking things you can take off of an APC when you're say like you're in
Oh,
hold and
yes.
you say hide your carrier,
Yeah.
take the weapons off and put them out, and like you could do that.
Hmm.
And in fact, I've trained, like back in my M113 days, like we get a tow section attached to the company. I got my barbecue buddy, tow guy, by my position, and like they got a 901, but we're in a dug-in defense. They haven't dug a hole for his 901,
Yeah.
so they
But they
take the tow
carry an
off. They
entire tow
they got
stand
a
for the
they got a tri
launcher.
they got a tripod, and we put a tripod in to like get out shovels and dig the
Yeah.
tow in.
And I think they also carried a whole second like range finding and spotting system for it too. It's not even like just the tow tripod. They've got like a whole second set of spotting equipment, so they don't even have to dismount the spotting equipment from the um, tower on it.
Well, I mean, when you've got the sight that's built
Yeah.
into the launcher, right? And built into 901, and then you have the same sight for the tripod. The tripod's got its own sight, day and thermal both, you know. But with that one, you gotta have like batteries
Yeah.
and and
I just
nitrogen
mean that like
cylinders.
it's
Like
very
it's a
much
pain.
purpose
pain
designed to be I don't have to use this mounted to the vehicle. I
right.
can, if we're going to be there for a minute, dismount it, be
Yeah, I mean, like,
stealthier, and hide the vehicle.
what if I want to put the launcher in a place where I can't get the vehicle? What do you do?
Yeah.
And you got that capability to do that.
Elevated skyscraper position, or,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
lots of good options.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm going to continue playing this. Yeah. Infantry's just going to go in, flank this, hopefully take that. Tanks, I think, are going to take on the enemy assets while they're still on the move, and we should be in pretty good shape, I think, for just doing lots of damage for almost no casualties far home. I'm almost thinking, I wonder if I should have, because I did not expect to catch this many enemies on the move. I wonder if I should have set some of my guys to 2/3 range rather than maximum range.
Well, here's the tension.
Of course, these are against Leopard 1s, not Abrams.
You got these recon assets,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time you're running those guys around. You're pushing your maneuver assets forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. You know, and do a hindcast after this is done. Would there have been an advantage to getting those independent recon birds out there to eyeball where, what movement's going on from the enemy,
Oh yeah.
and give you a command cycle to react to that?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like,
It's
if
tempting because
if I were a
it's tempting.
commander in realistic scenarios, I would have been like, where was I an hour ago right now? Like, why were my 2 flights of recon helicopters out 10 kilometers ahead of my whole formation, figuring out this is how the enemy is deploying before I figure out where I'm sending what?
And you've got some ground recon guys too, right?
Yeah,
Some
I've got.
BRDMs.
You get a lot of reconnaissance in this scenario,
Yeah.
honestly. Now, I mean, that's pretty consistent with how we treat Warsaw Pact in most scenarios. You, in general, have a lot of light reconnaissance units. They're not like the
Well,
Bradleys, but
I mean, in a recon company, you typically you got 3 light recon, you got a heavy recon. That was that tank unit in the south, right?
and they've
And
got the ground search radars on
Mhm.
all of their. I think they're still BMP platforms, right? No,
Well,
BRMs, but I think
the
it's.
I think the BRM is only in your headquarters. The rest of them are
Oh,
BRDMs, and you got a tank platoon. You got
nope,
a tank
it still
platoon
says BRM.
that
Maybe that's a data error. I don't know.
in everybody. Yeah, I
It's
think that's
just the 2 platoons that are attached to my independent recon battalion.
Oh, I got to look at maybe an IRB's got more
Yeah,
GSR,
yeah,
but
because this has a lot of GSR, which is nice. So I've got this unit. This
yeah, like a
platoon is
regiment.
pushed forward to here, and then I think I have the other platoon is going to push
Yeah, that's
way
probably where.
deep if it can, all the way to here, where I'm just going to see everything, Like by the
So
time
like
I get them here.
regimental recon, like you got a BRM. That's the excuse me, the platoon leader.
Oh yeah.
The rest of them are BRDMs, and then you got a
Okay.
heavy.
And they've got
Excuse me,
one tank platoon
you
to
got a
help them.
you got a heavy unit, and depending upon whether it's a tank or motorized rifle regiment, then your heavy is either IFV or tank. And the purpose of that heavy one is to run over our observation posts.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of that.
Which
So you got to
this
have some
scenario there
space
weren't
between.
any, but yeah.
You got well, I mean, but the thing is, you've like jammed. Like I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that like, compared to like how a Soviet would fight, you've jammed up your main body because of urgency. You've jammed your main body up like right behind your recon.
Oh yeah, no,
Right.
it's
All right, so
definitely
like
out.
you're not doing
It's
recon.
so close behind the recon that the recon is mostly just giving me enough warning that I can pull my guys back before they get in trouble.
Yeah, and I would tell you that like you want to have, if you want to play it like a Soviet, right? You probably want to have like an hour time between the leading edge of your main body guys
Yeah.
and your regimental level recon. And if you got other recon added in there, like counted as regimental recon, right?
Yeah. And I would have definitely liked that. It's just that this is only a 4-hour scenario.
Right.
Like I don't have
There's that.
time.
I mean, it's a fast scenario. There's
Yeah.
that, right? And it's not as fun, right?
Yeah.
You want to start shooting right away. I get that. All right, go ahead.
I do something to talk about while we watch this next OODA loop go. Tankcraft earlier said the plans I worked on always assumed initial Warsaw Pact with eventual NATO air superiority. The Hinds were also classified as an anti-air asset, albeit not much of one. Our helos weren't, although our pilots swore they could shoot down anything. Don't know if you wanted to respond to that a little bit while we play
Okay,
this OODA
so
loop out.
absolutely, absolutely, the Warsaw Pact trained their Hind crews, and they equipped them, at least in the D model, to shoot down enemy helicopters. Like, okay, can you shoot down a fast mover? Like, no, not really. And yeah,
Just,
okay, so, you know,
by fast
it
mover,
doesn't
you
matter what
mostly mean fixed wing aircraft, right?
fixed wing aircraft. Okay, so and it doesn't matter what platform, what weapon, what target. You will find examples that go like, yes, you can, but the thing is, can you do it consistently, right? So can you take out a tank with a 50 cal bullet? You know, well, no. Can you take it out with like 500 rounds? Maybe once in a great while. And like that's the kind of thing gets you a medal, right? It's not routine. Can you shoot down a fixed wing with a helicopter? Well, you know, if everything is just right, and the fast mover crosses your gun sight just as you pull the trigger, yeah, you can. Can you go out and hunt them with it? No. Can you do that helicopter versus helicopter? You sure can, because you know the movement envelope is the same. You can close the range band to get into effective weapons, and like that 50 cal yak tri-barrel, pretty doggone good against other helicopters. When they went to the E model, they took the 23 millimeter cannon off of like one of their fighters, mounted that on the Hind, except that it's too heavy to make it steerable on a chin turret. So they bolted it onto the side of the fuselage. Now you got to point the entire aircraft to aim the gun.
Found
And
the enemy farm, I think.
it's not like steering a MiG, right? And like, oh, it doesn't work that good, right? So I mean, you know, there's things and there's things. You know, like, can you shoot an ATGM and down a helicopter? You sure can. You know, things got to be right. Yes, they do. Does the Warsaw Pact have an advantage? Yes, they do, because their missiles fly like
A
3
lot
times faster.
Yeah.
3
Those
times
are great,
faster.
but they are slow.
They are
As
slow
ATGMs go. I mean, obviously compared to the guy running, they're blazing fast, but you're
Well,
at
I
their
mean,
max range. You've got a flight time of like
I mean,
20 seconds or something. Like that's a lot of time to get out of the way.
it's north of 20 seconds, right?
North of 20 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, north of 20 seconds, and it slows down the further you get away, right?
Yeah.
And so like the flight characteristics of the TOW and the Dragon, that's still relevant in this time frame, really like line up to the Sagger, like going back to the Arab-Israeli wars. And they didn't make them faster.
Yeah.
Instead, they built the Javelin.
Right.
Right.
Which
And this
has
gets you
many advantages, not just faster, but
well, I mean, the thing is, like, look at the time delay, and then look at the time delay between the evolution of ATGM performance on the Warsaw Pact side, right, compared to ATGM performance on the Western side. All right, so you get the Javelin, you know, in the late 80s, and the predecessor, well, they did warhead improvements. That's it.
Yeah.
They did warhead improvements. Otherwise, the rest of the missile dates back to the 60s.
Which is really old.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the TOW and the Dragon, because of the range band, probably not, but the TOW, you know, if I'm in a T-72 and I see a TOW launch at me, I can dodge that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, if I pick it up like 500 meters out, I got a good chance of dodging it. I can find a hole, you know, and get my driver in there in a couple of seconds. You know, I'm you know, like in 10 seconds, not a couple seconds, but like in 10 seconds, you know, I'm in good shape. Yeah, so the M150, the big thing about the M150, very vulnerable to artillery.
Hey, Cloud. Oh, man, we are catching so many of these enemies just out in the open and doing massive amounts of damage.
Did we answer the question that I started pontificating on?
I think
Did
so.
I get off track?
So.
Okay.
We did kind of talk a little bit about a few things there, but I think we answered the question in bulk anyway.
Okay.
So.
I was hoping answer plus. Hope I got there.
Yeah. And I think I'm very much feeling confident about having made the right call of just go around here. There we go. There's the rest of our stuff here. It's those 3 artillery units and our 2 flights of attack helicopters.
So you're gonna have quite a few helicopters in play now, eh?
Yes, I'm gonna have, despite the, oh my god, look at that. We're straight into fire missions. Those requests are ready. These guys are on it. I like that. I'm not sure. I might still cancel these just because these are hitting nothing. Or we don't have anything spotted here like this. I think everything that was in this hex is now dead. If they're, yeah, actually, I'm not sure everything there is dead. That is hex 1810.
Might still be some infantry teams there.
So I'm going to use the ability to
Well,
search.
the question isn't is everything dead. The question is what might be left. Is it a valuable enough target to spend the rounds on it?
Well,
Is there something
yeah.
better to shoot at that you know about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not going to spend the rounds on it either way. The question is, though, is there something there that I still need to kill because otherwise it will continue to spot my guys? Because I want to deny the enemy their intelligence. So we killed
Okay,
3
so where are
rifles.
okay, like stop, like
couple
okay, so
heavies.
HE versus smoke. Okay, so and I've not studied like the TONE of
I
your
think my
opponent.
only smoke is in these mortars. And they're not actually in range yet because they're just, I
Okay,
think, 82
the
millimeter
other
light
question
mortars.
is who's got thermals?
I don't think anyone in this scenario actually. Does
Well,
the
your
TOW 1 have
M150s
thermals?
do,
TOW 1 has thermals,
and
doesn't it?
TOW's got thermals.
Yeah. So
It
the
should, yeah.
TOW, the M150s, but I think that's it in the entire scenario. I think it's just those M150s. Did you actually?
Okay, so that's important to understand.
Okay. Did not.
So you know,
kill anyone.
have you identified where all the M150s are, or are they possibly
I have not
scattered?
identified all of them. So let's see. If we pull up our intelligence and sit rep, I know we've killed some, so they still have 20 to 30. So they still have a good chunk actually. Ooh, that's a lot still. Let's see. AT, Sparty. Oh, we found enemy Sparty? Here. Okay, a little bit out of range of our stuff so far.
And
But
don't
we've
forget, Sparty could include a mortar track, right?
it could, yes. It could be it could be. Does the Canadian Rifle
It's,
Battalion or Rifle Company have mortars organic to it? I don't know if they have any mortars.
let me check. Let me check.
I don't think they have organic mortars. I think this has to be their M109 one of their M109 platoons. Um,
I'm not sure about mortars. I just remember until quite recently Canada was still using laws.
Okay, so we've got self-propelled AT. Oh, it's hiding under a window here. Let's see. Self-propelled AT here. Self-propelled AT there.
Zastever in chat says, yes, a rifle company for the Canucks IRL at this time has some organic 60mm mortars.
Okay. TOW 1 and ITOW don't have thermals. The 2 Elantra on M113 might have thermals. Okay. So it might be nothing as thermals. So I could smoke my guys, but the reason they're here is to be able to shoot the enemy. So I don't think that's really what I want to have them do. But we do have a 6 to 10 Sparty here. And where did I see? Was it just that one? Spat, 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 spat. There are definitely a number of spats that I have not yet destroyed. So probably don't want to be
Looking at the TO&E, what I see is a mortar platoon at the battalion level, but not in the companies.
at the battalion level. Okay, so kind of hit
Yeah.
or miss on whether or not there's one here. We did it. Oh, we
Yeah,
shot down
Tungusk
like
is
half their helos. We shot down one of the flights, but we are down to 31% ammo on our Tunguska. So if he doesn't miss, the flip side there is how many helos do they still have? They still have
6 to
10.
10. It's near the top.
Yeah, 6 to 10. So I probably want to have these guys rest and rearm now while I have time before I have more enemy air assets spotted. So let's do that.
Looks like your enemy's got one mortar platoon. So what you've got is a mech battalion and a tank battalion, and they've been task organized. So you got like the mech battalion is mech heavy, has a tank company. The the tank battalion's got is tank heavy, has a mech battalion. The mech battalion has a mortar company. Unlike US, where a tank battalion has a mortar platoon as well. So it looks like you got one mortar platoon out there.
Yeah. So this could be a mortar platoon over here. It could be um, one of the M109 platoons over here. Honestly, can go either way. Where is your HQ? Is your HQ one of the things that just showed up? No. Why are you unhappy? Range to HQ. Flash HQ. Did I forget to order you? Arrival. I did. I forgot to order the HQ. Okay, you are going to move hasty to here and then to here. And try and catch up with your company. This is my top level HQ that I think just showed up. Yes, it just showed up. So you're just gonna kind of chill out. What's underneath here? The self-propelled artillery, HQ. You're gonna move hasty to like here is sufficient, probably. I want at least one of my artillery units to be all the way out to here. Probably like all three though, so I might just hide them like 1, 2, 3, or maybe like 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's do that. So you move hasty to here and go on call, and you move hasty to here and go on call, and you move hasty to here and go on call. Okay, and that'll get those guys close enough that they can actually do stuff, I believe. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. They're a little too far back as it stands. Now, I did spot the enemy. I think it was the FARP up here. I don't remember what hex it was exactly in. Kind of amazingly, these guys survived the stingers. Oh, except they're not stingers. They're is it blowpipes, right? Our recon helicopter survived the blowpipes in that FARP. Where are you going? You're going there. I'm kind of okay with that. You're here for right now. I'm gonna take this guy. He's not giving me much because I already have the tank unit providing more or less the same reconnaissance right in that same hex. So I'm gonna take this guy. You're gonna move deliberate to here, then you're gonna laterally move hasty here, and then I kind of want to put you like here. See if I can't have him find that FARP so that we can call some artillery on it.
I'm looking it up right now, and the blowpipe is controlled by a joystick. It's a manpad that is a radio-controlled joystick.
Nice.
That seems difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably very cutting edge and good at the time, and also I'm glad I didn't have to try and manage that because I'll bet it was difficult.
Well, okay, so, but think about this, like, you know, like we're seeing ATGMs shooting at helicopters. And I have to look at the blowpipe, you know. I don't think we do anything special with that as far as like aspect, you know, and whatever. But I mean, think about like trying to shoot a moving target with a first generation ATGM where like AT1, like Malutka. That's a joystick wing,
Oh yeah,
right?
no, I mean, like we clearly show that even if you assume a reasonably high miss rate, it's still, when you've got this many platforms, it's pretty deadly still, for sure.
Yeah.
Now let's see. So these guys are going back to rearm. These guys. Still working on trying to hunt up to that position before they continue down to here. I think it's probably time to just give these guys new orders here because I would like to know what's going on over here. So let's maybe send you like here and then duck down and fly around. Maybe pop up like here and then duck back and screen. Then our attack helicopters. I want you to come hunt to here. And you can just kind of chill there for this turn. You, though, I think I want to fortify over here, maybe knock out some of those M150s, that sort of thing.
So, Jeff, continuing on from sort of the assumptions that NATO and the Warsaw Pact made, you know, clearly with like platforms like the Tunguska and Shilka, the Warsaw Pact invested a lot of resources in air defenses. Because they knew, you know, they figured they wouldn't be able to control, you know, the airspace. Whereas NATO air defenses are not nearly as impressive at this level. You know, you have Stinger, you have, you know, VADS, Chaparral, but none of those are exactly as impressive as Tunguska or Shilka. Is that just a reflection on sort of, you know, priorities where the money got spent? or is it just sort of?
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, okay, it kind of goes back to the style of fighting. Okay, so you know the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet Union, like looks back to the Great Patriotic War and looks for all those things that worked. And like one of those things that worked, you know, from like 43 on is mass. And all the way up to, I would say, like early to mid 70s, they just relied on mass. You know, we're just going to shove more things down your throat than you can handle. And one of the reasons that the U.S. went from the active defense doctrine to the air-land battle doctrine is the spies discovered that the Soviets were changing how they viewed war, right? And as a fundamental, you know, seismic shift. And it wasn't just mass. That doesn't mean that they didn't train and keep that skill up. Like they kept that in their toolkit, but they started really getting into multi-pronged attack training. And like say like in 1973 or so, they were spending 4 times as much effort into training that ability. The other 25% was maintaining skills in using mass. Okay, so you got that mindset, right? Another thing, you know, pertaining to here is the notion that very much, I think that by the late 80s, you're still seeing the Soviets using attack helicopters, much like the U.S. used helicopters in Vietnam, which is kind of like aerial field artillery, right? The West, at least the Americans, you know, by the time you get to the late 80s, it's different. Your attack helicopter battalions, if you want to, if the division commander wants to, he can use those essentially as maneuver guys. Now, they can't grab and hold ground. They can like do 2 important things. One is they can push the enemy off a piece of ground. And the other is they can prevent the enemy from grabbing a piece of ground. And you know, there's, you know, that's one dimension. The other dimension is, for the air-land battle doctrine, is the deep attack. So what's a deep attack? It's not flying behind the front line of troops and finding on a map here that, you know, your opponent's headquarters and their artillery. That's not a deep attack. That's off map. All right. And so looking at like the division battle where you've got a rear battle, you got to worry about people getting into your rear and dealing with that. You have the close battle, which is what's on the map here, right? It's in direct fire range and howitzer range. That's the near battle. And then there's the deep battle, which is beyond that, but it doesn't rise to, you know, operational strategic level. It's about messing with the stuff that is further back. You know, if we're talking about ground forces, we might see them in 12 hours on the map. Okay, so that's not part of the game here. What is part of the game is the notion that you could take from the West, you could take attack helicopter battalion, and you could do things like cover a flank. All right, and they trained for that. Now the Soviet and the Warsaw Pact notion was, no, they're supporting the ground maneuver elements. And so they're adding fires to the ground fires to punch through. Once they punch through, they do a thing called accompaniment, which they follow along with the ground troops that break through the defense and get into the rear of the battalion brigade that they're fighting against to start messing those things up. All right, and it, again, this gets into, like, it's outside of everybody's doctrine, but you can do it in a game. That's fine. Explore that. I'm not criticizing that. right? But one of the things you can do is you can say, well, I'm going to do like a deep attack kind of thing, but it's part of the close battle. Like I'm going to fly helicopters around and get past the front line of troops and mess with folks that are supporting the close battle on the enemy side. And I'm not saying it's wrong, right? It's fun to explore that, and it raises some interesting what ifs for the folks at the War College and Command and General Staff College. Like, okay, so like what's the payoff? What's the cost, etc. But there's a really big difference between the use of helicopters in this time period, the outlook of the training and how we fight our war between the East and the West using helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that what I see in the Warsaw Pact doctrine has echoes of what I saw in U.S. Army doctrine in the 60s when we first had attack helicopter. I mean, like, okay, so like back during the Vietnam War, you had Cobras came online. Before that, they took utility helicopters, Hueys. And they said, well, you know what, we could bolt a rocket pod on each side of the Huey. So now you got a gunship, right? Machine guns were door gunners, but you had rocket pods. And that carries forward into this era in that the Soviet utility helicopter, the HIP, well, you could put rocket pods on that. Now, by the time you get to this era of the late 80s, by and large, they didn't do that, right? They used the HIPs for other things, but they still had the option to do that, right? And so if you take all the HIPs available to a division, all the Hinds available to a division, that's a lot of tons of ordnance you could throw at somebody. Now they're not precision, right? By and large, you're talking about rocket pods, and you see the same things going on in Ukraine now, right? So there's echoes and echoes and echoes, like going back generations. Very interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I want to talk about real quick is the use of ATGMs by the Warsaw Pact. So, you got ATGM, anti-tank guided missile, but that's not what it was to the Warsaw Pact. It was a counter to anti-armor systems. So an enemy tank equals a tow launcher equals a Dragon launcher equals a Carl Gustav. In other words, anything that is, maybe not a Carl Gustav, but long-range anti-armor systems, whether they're guns or they're missiles, are valid targets for ATGMs. And like you're looking at, like in the tank battalions, so you got a tank platoon, 3 tanks in a platoon. One tank has got ATGMs that you can fire out the tank main gun. And they were with the platoon leader, and the reason for those were to shoot at the tows and the balons and the other long-range systems, because they're easy to kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of like eggs armed with hammers.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons that the West put a tow launcher on a Bradley was to relieve stress off the tanks. And so it's like you double or triple the number of enemy systems that can kill you as a Warsaw Pact guy in your attack. And so, so you don't have every anti-armor system shooting at tanks. Now they got to spread it across like every unit.
Right. So it becomes increasingly difficult to suppress those AT assets before you go in.
Right. It's like mass versus mass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can see what you mean also by the the difference in the use of helicopters. If you try to use the Hinds, like kind of keep them back and sort of play with them, I guess a bit more defensively, like an AH-64. That you can put that looking over, say, a route that the Soviets are going to advance over, and it will absolutely massacre the tanks that are coming at it. But you can't really use Soviet helicopters in any. At least I haven't found them useful in a kind of defensive way. You want to use them as hammers supporting the ground attack.
Right. I think it's very helpful, like, until you get to where you're comfortable with the nuances of the weapons and all that stuff, uh, to think of them as really as a fire support thing, right? It's a very mobile mortar or artillery piece that can get to some place and spot for itself.
And it's probably worth mentioning that we have a number of scenarios where your AT infantry section that's part of the infantry company or attached to the infantry battalion includes recoilless rifles, which are almost literally artillery, in that they're a direct fire artillery system, more like a cannon from days of yore than they are a howitzer.
Yes.
But they're not missiles. They're recoilless rifles that aren't going to be doing much against an Abrams other than maybe a mobility kill at best.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. For something like that is, you got to get the right conditions, right? Very short range. Are you firing from surprise so you can get a flank shot, or are you in you're in an urban place and you can get a top deck shot or a rear shot, and I would throw the Dragon in there too, in that same category.
Found one of the ADATs. Sorry.
That's okay. You can't get a kill from all aspects. There are weapon systems that you can kill a tank if the conditions are right? So when you look at your force, you got to think about, like, how do I create the conditions where I can kill tanks? Right. And one of those is, like, you're not spotted before you shoot, and terrain matters, right? And that gets you into complex terrain matters, like high cover, high concealment. It doesn't matter whether it's a built-up area or it's just like rugged terrain that also has trees. Like, those things help. That's part of your terrain analysis before you even start doing stuff and making your plan. But I mean, you have weapon systems that have limited utility, and you got to understand the conditions where they're useful, right? So you can't put a Carl Gustav out in the middle of a beet field, or a Dragon,
right?
Or anything like that, or hell, SPG-9, same thing. Yeah. But there's times and places where they can turn the balance.
We got some questions in chat about whether we have a podcast, because this is interesting to listen to. All these live streams that we've done, this is part of a series.
You know what? Yeah, we could do. We got to figure out what we're gonna do. We got to like know what people want to have us podcast. I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, absolutely.
If you're interested in more content like this, though, if you check out the Matrix Games YouTube channel, we've got all of these live streams saved there. This is part of a series. This is episode 5, just going over Flashpoint campaigns and certain tutorial topics, going over the nuances.
Can we give a hint to, like, future streams?
We don't have anything super concrete just yet. Next month, we're going to SgtZdog is probably going to be doing a big marathon series of a campaign. We don't have dates firmly confirmed for that one just yet.
Yeah,
But that
I'm going to work with him, and yeah, we got something to iron out, like about the format and this and that and the other thing. But I think it's going to be very helpful to help folks understand war fighting in that era.
And we can save those and put them up on the YouTube channel as well, the Matrix Games YouTube channel.
But no podcast on the schedule yet. But we got more of these streams and another dimension.
And for those of you who are new, Jeff and SgtZdog here are developers of this game. This is Flashpoint Campaign's Southern Storm. It's on Steam and the Matrix Games website.
Oh, yeah, because we're running into our last 10-ish minutes here, aren't we?
13 minutes to go before we gotta make room for Das Tactic. So I'm noticing your BMPs are being pretty roughly handled in the Northwest, but...
Yeah, I had one company is now completely dead. This company...
Are they ones or twos?
They are BMP ones.
Oh, okay.
And did remarkably poorly with their ATGMs. Of course, this one just got shelled pretty hard. And there were a lot more tanks kind of in weird positions that I wouldn't necessarily expect. Did not do well. But I think there's relatively little of the enemy that's left on these forward objectives. And I don't think there's enough to stop the two remaining infantry companies from taking these two.
So your BMP's got Malukas?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, there you go.
The ATGM they have equipped. This is the
Yeah.
Maluka.
Yeah, but by this time they're really obsolete. Really,
yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, and I mean we're mostly shooting at Leopard 1s, but also like while I'm trying to do an assault move, it's not the weapon of choice. But I mean overall, I think things are fairly good here. We'll see if I can't snatch a victory here. Just have you guys move deliberate here, and hold, and you guys can move deliberate. Oop. Here, and hold, and then you guys are going to move deliberate here, and hold. Because I don't think there's much that can defend this town anymore. Like, I think there might be one M150 platoon or squad or whatever left there, and I think that's like it. I'm gonna pop these guys up onto here now. And then I think I'm gonna take. Yeah, you're already kind of depleted, and you have lots of other targets to shoot and that could shoot you, but this one's still in pretty good shape with pretty good amount of ammo. So I'm gonna have him try and just tow onto that objective there.
Save time for an AAR.
Yes. Yeah, we'll try and I'll make sure we save like 5 minutes here.
That's good.
Yeah, you're gonna go there. You're gonna go there. That's good.
I just didn't want you to forget about that while you're field marshaling.
Yes. Fair. There's definitely some other stuff here that I'm just gonna kind of not worry too much about. But I think if I cap this one, and the infantry cap these two, we're gonna be in pretty good shape. And I'll bet, yeah, we're already, even without taking any objectives, I literally have not secured an objective yet. We're already winning just off kills, which feels pretty good. So yeah, I'm just gonna hit start. I think that's probably all I really need to do here.
So just before we're in the final stretch now, they didn't really show up in this scenario, but fixed wing aircraft. I mean, this is the 80s. The AGMs are starting to proliferate. Aircraft have a ton of engine power, so they have a lot of mounting points, and so fighter bombers can carry a ridiculous amount of heavy ordnance. Jeff, what does it look like when an armored company is caught in the open and there's some attacker orbiting overhead? What does that look like?
Well, it's not a matter of they're orbiting overhead, right? So they make a strike, and like it's very much like if you're a dismounted guy and you get hit with mortars or artillery, right? So like if you can, you get out of the impact area. Because so like attack helicopter or a fighter bomber drops a load, right? They're not in a position to do another attack for several minutes, right? So the fast mover has they're moving fast, and there's a big oval. There's a big racetrack. They got to circumvent or navigate in order to set up another attack run. Which means that they're probably talking to a air controller on the ground who maybe has visibility on you, right? And so there's 5 minutes before you get the next thing, right? It's not immediate, right? Attack helicopters will, if they're firing dumb ordnance, let's talk about like Heinz shooting, and they're gonna like not shoot ATGMs, but they're gonna, even if they shoot ATGMs, right? Okay, so what's the attack profile look like for that? Like they pop up 50 to 100 meters above masking terrain. They shoot, and it's not fire and forget. So what they do is, to minimize their exposure, they begin a slow descent while tracking the target, right? And then once the munition hits, whether or it detonates, whether it hits target or not, they're going to break, left or right. If they're shooting rockets, and you can see this on OSIT videos on Twitter and whatnot, you'll see them launch and then do a hard break left or right and throw a bunch of flares out, right? And so now they're in a position where they got to set up another attack line. So you got some time. Scarier is the guy on the ground with binoculars and a radio watching everything you do and talking to an artillery battery. That is much more responsive, right? So you do the same thing, which is like, if you can, given terrain or obstacles or minefields or whatever, you try to like break from the last data point that the other guy's got, and put distance between you and the last data point. While you're doing that, you try and figure out, okay, where might this guy see me, right? And where can I go where I become invisible? Like, okay, there's a wood line like a kilometer to the right, and whether you're on foot or in a vehicle, like, you try to get to that wood line, right, and disappear. And then once you get in the wood line, you start making dog legs, because they're going to shoot where they last saw you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how you deal with that on the ground. Now, sometimes all you can do is take it. Like, you're getting bombarded while you're going through a gap in a minefield. You can't go left or right, because you're going to run into mines. You can't go forward because there's somebody in front of you. You can't go backwards because there's somebody behind you. All you can do is like get on the radio and say, like, you guys got to hurry up. Everybody knows you got to hurry up. And like, how fast do you hurry up going through a minefield? Even if it's been cleared, right? It's probably like a foot wider than your vehicle, like left and right.
Yeah,
it's probably not a straight line. It's got zigzags going through, right? So it's like, and it's it's hairy, right?
God bless the engineers; they do their best.
Well, it depends on the Army, right? I was a mech infantry guy. My job as a squad leader was, in a platoon attached, integrated in with a tank company, was like our job was to breach minefields. Not always engineers. It depends on the army, right?
Okay.
Like
Okay.
the UK Army, it's engineers do. The American Army, it's like you train your mechanized infantry to do that kind of stuff, like blow holes through barbed wire or mark and blow mines and make a lane like it. That's a little more than a tank would. Just depends on the army.
Mm.
And yeah, they got things like mine clearing line charge. Those are safe for like the last, like just before you make bayonet range. If there's a minefield like really close to defense position.
Mm.
Because like like back in this era, like a brigade's got 2 of those things on trailers. That's it. So it's like you go into minefield, you don't call for the MIC-LIC. It's like you get the mechanized infantry guys up there to make it too.
Okay.
Engineers, it's like it's more like you have a serious defensive belt you're going to try and bust into. Like the enemy is going to like spend 3 days building this thing. As a NATO guy, that the Soviets don't do that because they're attacking. If they defend, it's like maybe 12, 24 hours to hold what they got until the next echelon comes forward and passes through. So you don't have like it's not like you're like busting through fortifications because in that era that just wasn't like a likely thing to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now go back to World War II, it's different,
Mm.
on both sides. Sometimes, either side, like Eastern Front, World War II, early Eastern Front, you got the Germans, like they're going through 3 defensive belts that are like divisions deep, over a period of 2 weeks. And they've been working on for like 3 months and putting civilians to work, helping build the defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, you get into the late, after that, it's the other way around. The Soviets are attacking through prepared defenses that have had multiple days of preparation. And the way they did that, interesting thing to look at, if you're in military history, the German approach to doing that, the Soviet approach to doing that, different approaches. It was mass versus skill at a particular point is kind of like as a thumbnail how I would characterize it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is going to have to wrap us up for today. This went fairly well. My push on this objective here was going to go poorly because there's still basically an entire infantry company here that I thought I had killed more of, but very clearly have not. Though I suppose it's possible. They have all their Carl Gustavs. That was going to go poorly.
So my AAR question is, why do I see no smoke markers on the map?
Because my only smoke is the little bit I get on this mortar platoon.
Okay, fair enough.
And also because I had tanks in position for long range fires, putting down smoke would have blinded me just as much as it would have blinded the enemy.
Well,
realistically, if we had a little more time for me to play it out, I probably still would have used some just to section off and protect my infantry companies a little bit more. But
this would be probably more of a podcast thing. But the thing that I would the reason I bring this out is, and you didn't have enough smoke capability to do this, but the Soviets would, heck, everybody does it, right? Because if you're NATO, smoke is great because, in this era, they don't got thermals. So there's very few units have thermals, right?
Yeah.
And they're not fighting units, they're recon units.
Yeah.
So one of the things you can do with smoke is not so much like blind people who are going to shoot you, you combine the supporters, you can divide the battlefield up. It's kind of like creating an artificial ridge line as far as blocking line of sight, right? And so that's more of a podcast thing, I guess, if we ever do that.
West German helicopters had thermals. M150s did not have thermals. So I think it was just these 2 flights of West German helicopters were the only thermals. Now, obviously, ADATs have radar, which is also not going to be limited.
Right.
Oh, they actually also have thermal imager sights. So they're in real good shape.
We got. I think we may have a data issue with the M150s. I'm not sure though.
Someone was saying earlier that the TOW 1 and TOW 1A did not have thermal. You had to have a TOW 2 for thermal. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it might be the TOW 1A didn't have thermal, but the M901 did, or something. I don't know.
The thing is, this is kind of a disconnect, is that you have the evolution of the munition.
Yes.
And they have the evolution of the sight. And we kind of say, well, sight,
yeah,
munition, same thing. Not necessarily so. It's probably more we got, and I got to do some research on this, and this is like a gap. But it's probably more of a like you got to look at like the year, and then say, well, the year of the sight, the year affects the sight capability, and then you can say, I'm going to throw any ammunition I want at you. There's separate issues.
All right, I think we're impinging on DAS. It's been 3 minutes now, so I think we're gonna have to.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Before we go, for those of you in chat asking about a smoke themed episode, we covered smoke a lot in the artillery live stream, which if you check out the YouTube channel of Matrix Games, that will be there. That should be episode 4, I think, of the live stream. We talked about smoke. And I think for mechanized infantry as well, when we did episode 2, we talked a lot about smoke. So check out the YouTube channel, the Matrix Games YouTube channel. We have a bunch of these styles of episodes cataloged there.
Hang on, someone was asking me the other day for all the videos, so I grabbed the link to the playlist. Let me just grab that whole playlist and link that in the chat here, and then we can hop off. So if you guys want to see any of the previous episodes, go to that link. It's a playlist on the Matrix YouTube page of just all of these tutorial streams that we have done. All of them have been pretty good, I feel like.
And if folks have questions about smoke usage, like get on Discord.
Yeah, hop on the official Discord. We're always happy to chat with you guys. I'm on there pretty much all day. Jeff, you're on there, I think. Jim's on there a decent bit.
Yeah.
Charles is occasionally on there.
I'm not on. I don't monitor it closely.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think it's mostly me and Jim, but
yeah. So and Kevin and Jim will like poke me with a fork, like get on Discord and answer this. So like doesn't matter that I'm on there about once a week and like page through and like rant at people and whatnot. But if you got a question about smoke, Kevin or Jim can like poke me with a fork, and I'm happy to talk about it.
All right. Well, that's it. Going to be it for us, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching, and stick around because Das Tactic is going to be doing. I think
it's Panzer Corps 2, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Stick around.
More tanks. All right. See you guys next time. SgtZdog signing off.
Thanks, folks.
Take care, everybody.
I'll sign off.